Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. Now what I've got for you today is the cheapest 92 rated free hit team you'll see going into blank game week 34. With so many FPL managers loading up on double game week players for 33, game week 34 is the perfect time for you to activate the free hit chip. So hopefully this video helps you out with your thoughts moving forward. If it does, please do subscribe. I'm trying to get to 350 subscribers before the end of the season, so if you can help with that, it would be very much appreciated, and thank you to everyone who's supported the channel so far. So let's get into it, and I think the main thing to remember when free hitting is to get players in you wouldn't normally have from teams who are either really good or who are playing teams who are really bad. And with no Arsenal, Man City or Villa available, it could get really interesting. So with that in mind, I think you've got to go for a Wolves triple up, seeing as they play Leicester at home, and Leicester, they're just awful. I think having the double up in defence is better than the double up in attack, given how difficult it's been for Leicester to score recently. Plus, we have Aït-Nouri, who's better than most available midfielders anyway. I went for Cunha over Strand Larsen here. If you were worried about minutes, then go for Strand Larsen. But I just think Cunha has that risky upside that's kind of exciting that you want on a free hit. Even if he comes off the bench, I think he's worth it given the opposition. Fulham are another team that we're getting players from as they play Southampton, and even though it's away, Southampton are still Southampton and it doesn't really matter at this stage. It might look a bit out there starting Sessegnon, but he's a 4.1 million defender who's playing as a winger and has got 4 returns in his last 6. He's not guaranteed to start, so if you bring in Robinson ahead of him, I don't blame you, but the upside is there. Iwobi isn't someone who you need to have, but he does have the potential to get a couple of returns in any given game. And like I say, Robinson is worth a start, but someone in your squad has got to go on the bench. So just the double up from Bournemouth, who have kept 2 clean sheets in a row now. Man United are all in for the Europa League, and teams could really take advantage in the meantime. Man United struggle to score as it is, so I think Kirkes has a pretty good chance of a clean sheet at home. Plus he has 3 assists in his last 7 games. Kluivert shouldn't be a minutes issue given he's just played 90 against Palace, but if you're not convinced by his sharpness, upgrading to Mbeumo from Brentford is an easy call. I feel that West Ham are just all over the place at the moment, so it's definitely worth getting in some Brighton players who are also playing at home. I'd stay away from the defenders, given that Van Hecke is likely out with concussion, and even Leicester scored 2 past them recently. On the attacking side, however, I think Welbeck is a great pickup now that João Pedro is suspended, and he has that minute security. He's also got 2 goals in his last 3 games. Mitoma also got a goal off the bench in his return from injury, and you'd expect him to start the next one, but Brighton do have cover in that position. There's enough money in the bank here to upgrade to Palmer, but Chelsea just aren't clicking, and I'm not sure they're going to find form in time. If Palmer does well against Fulham today, then he could immediately come into consideration. Having said that, we do have a couple of Chelsea players on the bench, both defensive. Realistically, you're not going to need your sub-keeper here, so if you're really struggling for cash, you could go for a cheaper option. Everton haven't scored more than 1 goal a game for 7 games now, so a clean sheet isn't totally out of the question. You'd also think that Chelsea might rotate, with them still being in Europe, but Champions League is still a possibility through league qualification. Despite the Villa loss, and Villa had so many chances in that game against Newcastle, it could have even been more than 4. Newcastle have been in great form recently and are another team at home in game week 34, and they play a bottom 3 team in Ipswich. Ipswich defensively have fallen apart recently, and their keeper Palmer has really having to play well to keep them in games. If Newcastle get an early goal here, I can see it getting out of hand, and if it does, you'll want these 2 in your team. Finally, I've gone for Salah. I just think he has to be in this team. Spurs conceded 4 against Wolves recently, so you'd imagine it's more of the same here. Just like with Man United, Spurs this season is really dependent on Europe, so there's definitely the chance of rotation when they play Liverpool as well. So overall, like we said at the start, the team rating is 92%, which is not bad at all. You know, this takes into account the next few weeks, so 92 rated, especially when the team selection or the availability of players from all the teams is limited with it being a blank, I think is fantastic. The value is 92.2 million, so I don't think you'll find a cheaper team, and I think it's important to remember that there's no point spending money for the sake of it. You know, it also gives you the chance to upgrade to anyone you want. So if you look at this team and you think, oh, I don't really want Iwobi, well, that's okay. You should have enough to get someone like Mbuemo, or I don't really want Welbeck here. We'll get Visser in, or somebody like that, or Chris Wood, who played Brentford at home. There's so many good options here, but there's also the opportunity to upgrade them as well. And also being 92.2 million, hopefully all FPL managers can afford it. I don't know anyone who would have decreased in team value so much, nearly 8 million, that they wouldn't be able to afford this team from scratch. So for me, the strengths are that it targets the good teams and it also targets the bad teams. So we've got players from Newcastle and Liverpool, who are in form. Even Chelsea, who aren't in form, they've got something to play for. And Everton, who they're playing, they don't really have anything to play for, even though they're doing really well, Everton. The motivation as we get towards the end of the season might be lacking a little bit, especially when they go away from home. Everton at home, there's not many games left at Goodison Park, so they're going to be more motivated to play there. When they go away from home, it could be a different story. And targeting the bad teams is just something you need to do on a free hit. We always say across the season that, good fixtures creates good form. Well, that's what these teams have. This is what Wolves, Fulham, Newcastle, if they're playing the bottom three and the Wolves and Newcastle games are at home especially, there's a real chance to capitalise and get points out of nowhere. For me, the downside is benching headaches. So, you could even argue, why have you got such expensive players on the bench when you're not going to need them? Well, if there's nowhere for money to be spent, you might as well invest in your bench just in case some of these players don't play. Players do pick up knocks. Players sometimes don't travel for away games because they want a rest. So I think having a bit of a bench, if you don't need the cash in your starting 11, is absolutely fine on a free hit. I think having no Forest or Brentford is also maybe a negative here. We've kind of touched on it. We're talking about Brentford players, but Forest look pretty shaky at the moment. So having that Brentford attack, especially considering they've just scored 4 against Brighton, I think really does, factor into this a little bit. And like I said, because there's so much cash available, you can just upgrade any of these players. You could even go for a Chris Wood, who has Brentford at home. I do think that game will have goals in. I wouldn't go for defenders from that game. I just think there's just no need. But I think having attackers from the Forest-Brentford game could give you a bit of an extra upside for this team. So let me know what you think. I think it's a pretty good team on paper. So hopefully it's helped you out with your thoughts as well. If it has, please do subscribe. Let me know if you've got any questions. Let me know if you are free hitting in 34. Me personally, for my team, I'm not. But I'm going to have my assistant manager chip active for the 3rd and final week. And I'll be releasing a preview video out later in the week as well. So please keep an eye out for that. Hopefully having a good game week. And I will see you in the next one.